hey, I want to build that business to 100 million. I want that six pack. These goals aren't really coming from your soul. They're coming from programming, from cultural programming, from family, from television commercials, from the media. And so at a certain point in my life, I became acutely aware of what goals were coming from outside and what goals were emerging from the soul.
Vishen Lakhiani
is a visionary entrepreneur, author, and the founder of Mindvalley,
the world's leading platform for personal transformation.
With millions of students worldwide, Vishen has revolutionized the way people approach education,
blending cutting-edge science and spirituality to create lasting change in individuals and communities,
inspiring them to unlock their full potential and live extraordinary lives.
I wonder if I would be creating way more. I wonder if I would be further along in my career or whatever if I was in a steady partnership right now.
I would agree with that. If I was in a steady partnership right now, I would be creating way more.
Interesting. Why do you think that?
So what I've noticed is that
All right, here we are. Vishen Lakhiani, the founder of Mindvalley, gracing the Creative Path podcast. Thank you for coming today, man.
Adam, it's so great to be interviewed by you. I've been watching you on stage. I just saw the photos, the videos of your stage, not a talk, but a performance on Mindvalley. And it was mind-blowing.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations on a standing ovation. The crowd absolutely adored you. It was like a work of art. Something that's so rare when I see speakers on stage.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And that is the result. I like to tell people all the time, it's the result of a lot of work and a lot of practice. Right. I trained as an actor for over a decade in Los Angeles. And I think people often want to say, oh, that's just who this person is or that person is. And it's important to remind people you can do it and be anything as long as you're willing to put in the work. So I really appreciate that. For those people who don't know you, because I've known you for many years, I think I first spoke at Mindvalley in 2018, actually, A-Fest Portugal. Right. Let people know kind of the log line of you and Mindvalley.
So Mindvalley is the world's biggest transformational platform. So we bring in content, and the content is two types. It is sound frequencies and audios, meditations, hypnotherapies, and so on, as well as a model of learning called quests. And quests up-level your beliefs and your habits in 20-minute slices every day for, say, 21 days or 28 days. We're the leading player in the world in human transformation. So I'll give you an example. Our quest with Jim Quick, the speed reading expert. In the first 7 days, just 20 minutes a day, the average user boosts their reading speed by 270%. That's almost being able to read 2.5 times more books, right? Mm-hmm. And think about what that does to an individual. So when you get into Mindvalley, you get these improvements: speed reading, learning to work with your energy body, learning to scale your business to 1 million, then scale your business to 100 million with Mickey Agrawal, learning branding with the founder of Zumba, who built the world's biggest health brand at one point. You learn all of these skills and you improve your mind, your body, your soul, your entrepreneurship career, as well as your work performance. And that's really the goal. Our goal is to make human beings the best damn humans they can be.
Well, you do a really great job of it. And I think that's an extension of how you approach your own life. You're a guinea pig with yourself, first and foremost. I see you posting things about all the different aspects. And this podcast in particular, The Creative Path, is about creativity. And so for me, creativity is the process of putting together patterns that you've never put together before. And so how intentional are you with who you have become as a guinea pig for all these things? I mean, you're around some of the craziest brains and experts in all kinds of fields. How intentional are you with what you choose to pursue, what interests you, and kind of creating who Vishen is?
Well, I'm super, super, super intentional. That means I have solid clarity on the goals that I want to attain in life. And these goals don't just come from culture, right? So many of the goals that we say, hey, I want to build that business to 100 million. I want that six pack. These goals aren't really coming from your soul. They're coming from programming, from cultural programming, from family, from television commercials, from the media, and even from your political party, your religion, the culture, the nation that you're in. And so at a certain point in my life, I became acutely aware of what goals were coming from outside and what goals were emerging from the soul. The Reverend Michael Beckwith, who's one of our teachers on Mindvalley, calls this mature versus immature wanting, right? Immature wanting is, wow, look at that TV commercial of that red Corvette. I want that. That's immature wanting. It's outside programming. It's what drives the capitalist system, right? But it's also what drives culture, what drives religion, other people telling you what you have to aim for. Now, mature wanting is being able to listen to that still voice within and go, wow, that's really what my heart wants, what my soul wants. Steve Jobs said, listen to your heart and intuition. They somehow already know who you are to become. And I really, really believe in that. And so I learned to tune out the immature wanting and to go for the mature wanting, which is listening to that still voice within. That's how I set my goals. And so many of the creations I've built makes no conventional sense in terms of business. They just don't make regular business sense, but they work and they bring in, and they're profitable, and they bring in so much joy into my life.
And so when did that shift for you? Were you always that way? Was that an upbringing thing?
No. So one of the side advantages of running a transformation company is I get to learn from many teachers. I started Mindvalley when I was a VP of technology sales in Silicon Valley, right? So I was a programmer and a VP of sales. And the company I worked for had just horrendous culture. It was an awful place to work, and I wanted to quit. But I was a Malaysian citizen working in the United States with my visa attached to this company.
Oh, got it.
If I quit, I lose my visa, I leave the US. Boom, I go back to my home country. I'd been in the US, I'm American educated, had been in the US for 9 years. I built my life there. And that was really hard. But one day, I had this gut instinct that I needed to quit. And I remember that day perfectly. I was living with my girlfriend back then in New York.
How old were you?
I was maybe 27.
Okay.
I think I was 27. And what had happened was I had gotten really fascinated with meditation and intuition. I'd taken a class by Silva Ultramind. It was one of the works, it was one of these meditation protocols from the 60s and 70s by this guy called Jose Silva, Silva Ultramind. And it's all about really going into altered states of mind. And when you're in these altered states of mind, alpha, then theta brainwave frequency, activating intuitive ideals, activating intuitive thoughts. And so I would do that every day, 15 minutes, just go into this deep altered state, theta. And theta is a very interesting brainwave frequency. When you're at theta, you are tapped into this insane amount of creativity. But what also happens is you can't stay awake. You start nodding like that, right? So there's a trick. You got to be able, the more conscious you can be at theta, the more you can tap into ideas that seem to come out of nowhere. There's a story about Edison, and it says that Edison would take his famous afternoon naps, and he would hold a steel ball in his hand. And as he drifted off into sleep, his hand would drop, the ball would hit the ground, create a thud, a clang, a metallic sound, and it would wake him up. He was dipping into theta to source ideas. Now, recently, some scientists studied this phenomenon. So they gave two groups of people like a complex math problem. And one group of people had to nap and then go solve the problem. The other group of people, no napping, just go straight to the problem. The napping group, I think, were 80% more effective at solving the problem. So there's something about dipping into these states. So at an early age, even when I was in Silicon Valley, I was doing this. And one day, while I was in this state of mind, a thought came to me. And the thought was, leave this company. Leave this company. It's okay. Just trust. Leave this company and leave it now. And so I remember it was November, it was Thanksgiving 2003. I wrote to my boss on Thanksgiving holidays and I said, I'm afraid I have to quit. And my boss said, what? You're the top salesperson in the company. So I was literally the top salesperson. I was 400% above quota. And he's like, are you crazy? And then he said, but don't leave. I'll increase your salary. And now I was thinking, whoa, salary increase? So I could leave and try to start my own thing. Well, I could just have security and have a salary increase. But that gut instinct was so solid. I quit. And two things happened, which I could never have foreseen. The first thing is the FBI raided the company. and arrested my boss shortly after I quit because for corporate espionage. The company had shitty culture and the owner was doing some shitty things. So the boss was arrested. And the second thing, so that was just wild. Like something in my gut made me quit just at the right time. And then the second thing that happened is that I was wondering, what do I create? And I was looking at two different ideas. One idea was I was creating this brand of stuffed toys, sort of like Teletubbies, but with superhero motives. But that was too hard to do. I'd hired an artist, a designer. We wanted to get these manufactured. We thought it was going to be the next really great kids toy. Completely failed. But the other thing I thought is, wow, the silver method was so cool. And I know a little bit about Google AdWords advertising. What did I get a license to help promote silver method CDs online? So I started a meditation website selling meditation CDs. Back then, CDs were a thing. And that website grew and grew and grew. And that became Mindvalley.
Wow.
Now I lost my visa. I had to go back to Malaysia, and that was freaking tough. Adapting back to a different country, it was hard. But in Malaysia, again, following my instinct, I kept building up Mindvalley, and eventually the company hit, most recently, just under 150 million in revenue. No VC, no bank loans, fully profitable, and I feel very blessed. And yes, there were moments when I stumbled along the way, but always this inner voice was guiding me.
So talk to me a little bit about we have thoughts every day.
Right.
We have thoughts every day. Oh, I could do this or I could do this. For you, actually, it feels like it was more than a thought. It was something like it was a calling. It was an intuition. It was something. Can you talk about how do you differentiate those two things? How do you does it feel different in your body? How do you know when you go, this is just something that I have to follow versus this is just a thought?
So here's the practice I do. The first thing is this. I try to ignore the culturescape. The culturescape is a word I coined in my book, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, and it speaks about that mass of rules and beliefs and ideologies around us that program us. So let me give you an example. When I was building up this meditation website, it was running on its own. It was doing pretty well, but I didn't have to put too much work on it. So I could do other things on the side. It was making millions, just a couple of million, but it was enough to fund my lifestyle, pay for around, we had 40 employees. And then I was reading the newspapers, and I read about this company called Groupon. And Groupon had become one of the fastest growing companies in history. It was a darling of Silicon Valley. And Malaysia, which is where I was living in, didn't have a Groupon. So I thought, man, I want that. I can start that. I want to build the Groupon of Malaysia. And, I wanted press, I wanted accolades, I wanted like VC money. I wanted all of those things that in the newspapers was saying made you an entrepreneur. Tech company, VC investors, and so on. So I pitched it to one of Malaysia's most successful entrepreneurs. He became a co-founder, and we managed to raise $2 million from Intel Capital Ventures. I was like, boom. The meditation website, that's just a hobby. This is what's going to make me a real entrepreneur. And so I was now running two businesses. Within 6 months of getting that money, and I was the CTO of this new business, I sank into a depression. I just hated it. I hated building this up. And I realized why. I wasn't doing this because my soul spoke to me. I was doing this because I wanted all of those things that the media and culture said I needed. I needed a VC to be legitimate. I needed a tech business to be legitimate. I needed to raise X amount of money. And I was so miserable, 6 months. And remember, I just gotten $2 million in venture capital from Intel. I went to my co-founder and I said, I can't do this. I really can't. And he said he was so pissed off at me. And he had a right to be. I gave up my shares. I sold back my shares. I quit the business. And then another idea hit me. So this was 2010. And that other idea was, what do I really want to do? And so I thought, I want to start a festival. So this came out of the blue, but it didn't come out of the blue. I was having this intuitive reading. So I was speaking on stages around the world because I built a very successful company that was profitable with no VC money, and it was growing and growing and growing. We had an office that had just made Inc. magazine one of the top most beautiful offices in the world. So I was speaking around the world on my entrepreneurial journey, and I happened to meet this psychic, our mutual friend Dawn Hong, right? And Dawn was doing a reading for me, and she said, "You speak on a lot of stages, but what I see is that if I see that your energy system chakras line up, if you have your own stage, you should consider creating an event." And so that seed kind of went in my head, and I thought, that's actually true. How fun would it be to just create an event? So again, I started following my instinct. I was speaking at a big event in Washington, D.C. My speech got a standing ovation. It was on company culture. And at the end, I said, "Hey, guys, just putting it out there, but if you guys enjoyed me for the last 90 minutes, would you be interested if I put together an event? I don't know where it's going to be. I don't know what we're going to talk about. But if we just put together an event and for 4 days, and we just went deep into these ideas, right, of transpersonal ideas, spirit, soul, and entrepreneurship combined. Would you be interested?" And I said, "I don't know how to do this. I don't know what it's going to cost, but I estimate the ticket price will be $2,000. 30 people bought a ticket. And so I assembled these 30 people together. I now had $60,000 in money. I put them in a room and I said, "Let's come up with an idea for the name." And someone said, "This idea sounds really awesome. Let's call it Awesomeness Fest." So I'm like, "Okay, we'll call it Awesomeness Fest." And then I asked them, "Should I do this in LA, at an easy to access hotel, or should we do it in some place crazier, wilder, more exotic, like, I don't know, Costa Rica?" And someone said Costa Rica. So we created Awesomeness Fest in Costa Rica. And that was what started Mindvalley events. And today, Mindvalley events, you've spoken at them, are these big things. Thousands of people come to Mindvalley events. We're about to put on, we're now aiming to create the world's biggest personal growth festival in Dubai in February. Awesomeness Fest is still going on. It's now 14 years later, and the next one is happening in Ibiza, Spain. You just came back from Mindvalley University, which is a 21-day personal growth festival, the longest personal growth festival in the world. But it all started from, well, I guess this psychic reading, and then me just not really knowing how to put it together, but trusting that gut instinct and then co-creating with my customers.
So one piece that I think is really important that I'm picking up from this story that you're sharing is that you had financial resources along the way, right? You were number one salesperson, VP of, right? So you obviously had money that allowed you to at least have some security of, okay, I'm leaving this job. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm leaving this job. And then you raised 2 million, but you still had the other one that was making millions. So you're just like, and there's something different that happens when you know that you have the financial resources.
And I just want to be clear: the financial resources weren't as big as you think. Even when I was starting that Groupon clone for Malaysia, which ultimately failed, right? The company completely failed, and it was just because the entire Groupon model failed. So my instinct to leave was true. I was making maybe $250,000 a year. It wasn't a massive sum.
Well, for a lot of people, so in my audience, I speak. So I have I've mentioned to you before an incubator program for artistic entrepreneurs, and in that program, so many of the people who apply are making anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 a year, right? And this is now versus 2003. That's nothing relative to inflation and everything. So my question for you is putting yourself in the mind of someone who's only making $50,000 a year today. Do you feel like that intuition and that feeling needs to still be prioritized above everything else? Or do you feel like getting just to a place where you are financially able to not worry about money so much is actually step one?
That's a really good question. So there's actually a mathematical model for this. So excuse me, now I'm taking off my creative hat and putting on my engineer hat. There's a mathematical model for this. So here's what it looks like. So one of the first interesting things is there's a book called Breakthrough Companies, and it shares this stunning statistic. You are 30% more likely to succeed in your business if you stay with your day job and build your business on nights and weekends. So now I was building up Mindvalley. I actually didn't quit cold turkey. I told you I resigned Thanksgiving 2003, But for the 9 months before that, I'd already started building the meditation website. It was making like very little money. The first month I remember I lost $800. Second month we lost $300. Then we made about $400. It was still running.
For 9 months. That's really important.
For 9 months.
I want people to hear that.
Now, I knew I needed to quit when I realized that with the little bit of money the website was making, I could cover my day-to-day costs. So my salary back then in New York was $7,500 a month. And my girlfriend was European. She didn't have a visa, so she couldn't work in America. So for $7,500, I had to support 2 people. Now, when my website, my little meditation website selling meditation CDs was generating $4,000 in profit, $4,000 we calculated was exactly what we needed to pay rent, to eat healthy, to maybe go out with friends twice a week, and to occasionally, book flights to go visit our parents. That's all, $4,000 a month. It was tight living, but we could survive. As soon as that website was making a steady $4,000 a month in profit, I knew I could quit my day job. So my salary went from $7,500 to $4,000. So now it was a little bit tough. But because now I was no longer just dedicating a couple, like maybe 10 hours a week on the company, nights and weekends, I was now dedicating 40 to 50 hours a week. That $4,000 doubled in 2 months. We made $8,000. And then that doubled. And then that doubled.
So what do you attribute that to?
So the mathematical model is this, right? Know your minimum livable income. And if your side hustle can make your minimum livable income, that's when you can quit your day job. But until you can do that, don't quit your day job, because that's going to that can easily put you in a state of stress and anxiety. And when you're in a state of stress and anxiety because you don't know where your money's coming from, it literally will stress, increases cortisol, anxiety increases. It takes you to beta level thinking. Beta level thinking is the opposite of intuitive thinking. It's the opposite of being in your state of meditation.
It's not creative. It kills creativity.
And so you get stuck. And so you must be able to be in a comfortable state where you can relax. You can feel yourself. You can really go deep, and you can let those ideas flow. And so that's why that balance of money is so important. Know your minimum livable income. So I could live, I could survive. I didn't have stress and anxiety. Yeah, I went from $7,500 to $4,000, but because I could eliminate the stress and anxiety, I could be creative. And those creative ideas caused me to double the business in 2 months.
And now outside of that, because I think that's really great advice, I'll let you know, just for a quick story, I did sort of the opposite. Actually, I burned the boats.
Right.
And so I was an actor in Los Angeles, and I had a spiritual awakening. I was in a partnership at the time. We'd been together for a few years, actually. We were living together. And we both had this awakening through ayahuasca.
Right.
And suddenly I just went, life is different. Life, what I thought about life is not what life actually is. There's a whole layer of spirituality and energetics and all of this stuff. And I need to start to live with those principles rather than the principles I'd previously been living with as an actor in Los Angeles. And so what ended up happening is we gave away, I would say 80% of all of our belongings. We literally gave them away. We posted it on Craigslist to all our friends, or our Facebook, and said, hey, anyone, I gave away a snowboard. I gave away, just gave it away. Everything we couldn't give away, we put in an alley, took a photo, posted it on Craigslist, said, come and get it. This is all free. And then we started traveling. We had one thing, which was our friends who were coaches, and they'd been coaching for years, they were going to Australia to lead some workshops. And they said, do you want to come facilitate with us and be like our support? And we're like, sure. Gave up everything and began this travel adventure. And on paper, it made no sense because we had just started coaching, started taking and going, wait, you're leaving your entire community, everyone who knows you, no social media following. How are you going to make money? And for me, there was a core component to that. One, I had a partner. I had someone with me. And I'm curious, in your story that you're saying, how did it make a difference that you weren't alone?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. So my girlfriend went on to become my wife, Christina. We're now divorced, but she's like one of my closest friends. And we co-parent. We have 2 kids. the reason I'm in Estonia right now, where we're recording this, is because Christina is Estonian. And after we got divorced, I told her, you choose where in the world you want to be with the kids. I will come because my children are so important to me. So Christina was my ally this entire time. But as I was building the website, because I was a programmer, she was doing customer support. She was, working with the customers. And so it definitely can help in those early states if you have someone that you click with, that you're working with.
And so now we're two men sitting here, not in partnership necessarily. Right. Like you're divorced. I am currently single. How do you relate to it now? Like, how do you relate to, because I think for myself, wow, I wonder if I would be creating way more. I wonder if I would be further along in my career or whatever if I was in a steady partnership right now.
I would agree with that. If I was in a steady partnership right now, I would be creating way more.
Interesting. Why do you think that?
So what I've noticed is that after a night of beautiful intimacy, right? When you're with someone that you really love, when you are making love, when you're connecting deeply, when you are, giggling next to the fireplace, drinking tea, it fuels you. And the next day when you go to work, there's this feeling of like calmness and presence. And I notice that. And I find that I'm so clear. There's no stress in my system. I'm just so clear. And I feel more like a man, right? It's like your masculine energy has been refreshed because you were in this beautiful connection with a woman. And masculine energy creates, it organizes, it structures. And so I find that after those type of experiences, I am so good at my business.
Well, let me ask you this question then, because I agree with you where I've had to play the game of, okay, well, I'm single now and I want to be in that energy, right? So do I go on more dates? Because I'm not with one person, but then should I go on dates? I travel so much, that sort of thing. But then I sometimes feel like it's a distraction and it actually takes energy more.
Dating can be a distraction.
It can be.
Right? Like I live in Estonia, and you know what? One of the reasons I'm not in a longer term relationship is just because of distance. I can't do long distance, but I don't meet people in Estonia. It's a very, very, very small town. I don't speak the local language. And so when I'm here, I will maybe have 1 date, 2 dates a year. That's it.
Oh, wow.
It's non-existent. When I travel, I meet people. But unfortunately, because I'm not in the same, I'm kind of here because of my kids.
Right.
I'm moving to London next year, English-speaking country where I think my dating life will probably improve because my daughter's going to school. My daughter's going to school in London, but I sacrificed dating for my children because we wanted them to complete schooling here in Estonia, so they learn their language and their culture. When my daughter goes to school in London, my son's going off to university, and I move to London, I think dating will probably be easier.
Which is really admirable. I just want to just say as a man, there's a lot of stereotypes about, once a divorce happens and the man not being so present and whatever. Right. I think it's not often highlighted enough that there are some really great fathers and men out there. So I just want to acknowledge you for that and the sacrifices that come with that.
And that's something else, Adam. While yes, you can get fueled from a night of intimacy with a woman, you can get fueled from your children. Like I'm super close to my kids.
So you have managed to hit on 2 massive parts of my soul that feel unfulfilled right now, which is that partnership and my children, which that is the next chapter. So I do have a question for you because this is something I've been thinking about a lot. And you're the founder of one of the largest personal development companies in the world. And I see a common thread, which is that there are a ton of really amazing humans who have spent at least a decade in the personal development realm, who are all in their late 30s, 40s, or even early 50s, and they're single.
Right.
And so I've started to wonder, does all the personal development work actually somehow correlate to people not having it? Okay.
No. I mean, I was with the same woman for 19 years. I was with the same amazing woman for 19 years, and she's still in my life. Like, we are good friends because we co-parent. She's one of my closest friends, and I'm so proud of her. She just wrote a book called Flossom that was #1 in the Wall Street Journal. It is an honor to have been in a union with a woman of that caliber. But the thing about relationships is this. The way we spoke about the culturescape, we spoke about how, very often we set goals from outside influences. The thing about relationships is, who says that it's meant to last till death do us apart, right? Relationships, I believe, as I've gone deeper into spiritual work and personal growth, I believe that we attract different souls to come with us in a union over time. And sometimes that union may be 19 years. Sometimes that union may be 1 year. The average American will have 3 partners in their lifetime, 3 long-term partners. Now,
what is definition of long-term?
1 year or more.
Okay, 1 year.
That's a statistic from Catherine Woodward Thomas, who wrote the book Conscious Uncoupling. So my wife and I, we had a conscious uncoupling. Gwyneth Paltrow popularized it, and then when me and Christina did it, it was the second biggest talked about conscious uncoupling.
Oh, really?
In the world.
One of my most popular YouTube videos is conscious uncoupling, actually.
Exactly. So the official conscious uncoupling program is on Mindvalley. But what's going on over there is that we realized that at a certain point, we were no longer meant to be together as lovers. Yeah, we're going to co-parent. Yeah, we're going to, we may be in business together, but that relationship had ended and we had to evolve our relationship. This happens to a lot of people. But because they have this idea in their mind, till death do us part, they stay in a non-functioning marriage. And that prevents you from so many beautiful opportunities in life. And so I came to the realization that you don't have to break up. Even the word break is such a nasty word. You can uncouple in a conscious way. Be friends, be close, be supporting each other, co-parent, and give yourself permission to live on your own or go find someone else and continue your journey through life.
Yeah, I really agree. I think people come into our lives for a season or a contract of some kind. Right. Some of those are going to be 40, 50-year contracts. Some of them might actually just be a year or two. Right. And ultimately, the success of a relationship is not based off of how long it lasts.
Exactly.
The success of a relationship is based off of how much did you both grow in the direction of why you're here and who you are to become. Right. And did you support each other in that journey? And I think that's really beautiful.
And you can tell if you are blinded by the culturescape based on how you think about your exes. I mean, yeah, of course, we all have rotten exes, right? But if you feel guilt that the relationship ended, if you hate your ex because the relationship ended, if you decided, I don't want this person in my life anymore, you're probably buying into that bullshit idea of forever and ever and ever. Christy Marie Sheldon, who's a spiritual teacher on Mindvalley, said this. She said, your soul hates the concept of the vow. And as soon as you make a vow, I will be with this person till death do us part, you have compressed your soul. You have put your soul in a cage. Your soul is here to experience life, not to fall into a structured pattern that comes from the culturescape. You look at marriage. Marriage was invented in Venice, I believe in the 17th century, as a form of property arrangement. 2 people came together so their families could come together. It was a family property arrangement. In fact, even the concept of love in marriage is a relatively new concept. Dating back to around the 1910s, 1920s, I remember in Catherine Woodward's book, she talks about how there was an article in the newspapers, I think from 1910 or 1920, where a woman was writing to an advice columnist saying, I don't feel love for my husband. And the advice was basically this: who says love belongs in marriage? You are in marriage for convenience, to produce children, to be safe. Now, does that resonate with us today? No, we want love. We want mind-blowing sex. We want intimacy. But this is a relatively new, about only 100 years old, construct in our human society. But to truly claim that, we got to recognize that sometimes the spark dies out, right? And when that happens, it is okay to part ways as friends, to still love that ex-partner, and to go on your own separate journeys.
And that's the same as our relationship to everyone and everything, meaning that spark can go out in business. Right. That spark can go out on a path that you've been walking for 10 years, building a company, building whatever, and not holding on to a spark that's died out is an actual I mean, that takes a lot. It's simple to say, but it can be quite complex to do. And so bringing it back to creativity and this journey of soul fulfillment, let's call it that, soul fulfillment. One of the things that I really admire about what you've done and how I've observed you is you really build things around what lights you up.
Right.
We've talked a bit about what is coming next, and I see that you're going, what do I want? What do I love? And how can I make that something that's available to more people, right? And I'm curious if what sort of practices or tools or exercises that you do to stay in that communication. Because one of the things that I know that I see amongst people, and I've struggled with in my life, is going, but what do I really want?
Right.
What do I actually want? Because like, this is fun, this could be cool, but nothing's really calling me. And I'm curious how you identify the things that most call to you when there's so many options available.
So I believe there are two aspects of being human that we need to acknowledge, but our education system does not acknowledge it. The first is intuition. We are not our brains. Our consciousness extends beyond our body and our brains. Neil Donald Walsh, in his books Conversation with God, explains it like this. He says, your consciousness extends to like all life on the planet. It kind of coalesces into you here, but then it kind of like moves forward and coalesces into Adam Roa in front of me. Consciousness is rather like air. So there's air in this room that we're in, this studio. There's air outside. That air may smell different. Maybe here we had a scented candle, maybe outside, it's a little bit of smog, but it's the same air. You open the door and the air is connected. Consciousness is like that. I believe we are not just in our brain. Our consciousness spans the entire planet. And my theory is this. This is where great ideas come from. In fact, this is often attributed to Edison. Edison is said to have said, ideas come from space. It's hard to believe, but it's true. Ideas come from out of space. In other words, ideas come from beyond your brain. In the book Big Magic, which is a great book on creativity.
Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yeah, Elizabeth Gilbert says the universe will come and whisper in your ear a great idea. And your job is to listen and act on it. And if you don't listen, the universe doesn't care. After all, it's the universe. It will just go whisper in someone else's ear. So the secret is this. If we're all connected, then this mega consciousness, which is up, which we may call God, which we may call, a higher power, this mega consciousness sometimes dreams up things that need to be built. Maybe the iPhone, maybe new types of medicines that can help heal people. And it will whisper. It'll go, Adam, you're meant to create this poem that's going to have 250 million views on YouTube and like change people's view of life itself. And Adam, your job is to simply take those instructions and run with it. Most people don't. But when you can sit and tap into that still space, that's when the whispers get stronger. So that's the first thing. Intuition is real. It is not, and by the way, science on this is also true. Professor John Michalowski of the Newark College of Engineering wrote a book called Executive ESP. So he did a simple test to see if executives could demonstrate intuition. This is the card guessing test, right? Called Xena cards. You'll recognize them from the opening scene of Ghostbusters. And what he found was this. The CEOs who had better, more correct guesses on the card, so there are 5 cards, your odds of guessing correct are 20%, but some people were getting 22, 23, 24, 25%. Those CEOs coincidentally, but there's no coincidences, had the highest profit rises in their company. Now, there were other CEOs who guessed way below 20%. It's like they were self-sabotaging their guesses. Their mind was saying something and they would go, no, I'm going to pick the other card. They had the lowest profitability growth in their business. So intuition has been studied. It is real. There's overwhelming scientific evidence on this. There's a whole book called The Conscious Universe, which is meta-analysis over meta-analysis, showing that intuition is real. We have the capacity to know beyond our brain. But you got to learn to listen. So that's the first one. Now, the second one, and we can go into it, I'll just give you a hint right now, is the idea that our consciousness creates reality itself. We can attract the right people, the right circumstances, the right situations that move us towards the images in our brain.
Okay, so 2 key pieces to because this is creativity. What we're talking about now is creating reality.
Right.
And so there's the two pieces. One is learning to listen to your intuition, and one is the adoption of the idea we are actually creating this reality with our consciousness, and therefore the actions you take as a result of that. With those two pieces, can you speak to what you do intentionally to strengthen these two for yourself?
So intuition speaks to you when yes, the universe will occasionally whisper randomness to you, but you got to raise your hand. So how do you raise your hand? I believe we live in a benevolent universe. In other words, the universe always has your back. Even when shitty things happen, very often those shitty things are designed to point you towards, a new way of life. So one of the practices I do is in 2010, I went to Chicago and I attended this program called Lifebook. It was a $5,000 a head seminar, and you sit in a room, this beautiful, gorgeous room called the Lifebook Lounge for about 4 days. And in 4 days, you look at your life from 12 different areas. Your emotional states, how do you want to feel on a day-to-day basis? Your character, who do you want to be? Your financial goals, your career goals, your family goals, your relationship goals, your goals for travel and adventure, all of 12 different areas, right? Most people in our schooling system get us to only focus on 2, career and wealth. So that's why there are so many people out there who might have money, but have broken bodies or lousy relationships or hate their work. But when you focus on all, you start to create a more beautiful life. So, and then when you come out of Lifebook, you have a 100-page book of how you want your life to unfold. Okay, so it's 2010, it's around April. I go to this Lifebook event, and one of the 12 categories is quality of life. So I literally wrote the following down. I wrote down, I want to be able to stay in 5-star hotels around the world. I want to have friends who are incredibly amazing, inspiring people. I want to speak on a big stage because I love speaking, but I was a small-time speaker. And I want to be friends with other inspirational speakers that I look up to. I want to be able to travel to all of these countries. I even wrote down some crazy stuff. I want to be able to toss epic parties in private islands in Mexico, in the Mediterranean. I wrote down in my Lifebook in April 2010, okay? Now, by October 2010, the intuitive ideas that were whispering to me started pointing me towards these crazy dreams, as wild as they were. I started that festival, A-Fest, and within a few years, my God, Adam, I had my own platform, my own stage. I was speaking on stage with legends like Lisa Nichols, with Chip Conley of Airbnb, these amazing inspirational entrepreneurs I looked up to. The people who attended A-Fest are just rock star entrepreneurs, and many of them became my closest friends. Today, many of my closest friends were people I met at those events. I was able to stay at the presidential suite at luxury hotels around the world, because when you bring an event to a luxury hotel, guess what they do? They give the owner of the event the presidential suite. I was staying in these gorgeous hotels for like weeks, just basking in luxury. I got to travel to all of these countries because A-Fest took place in a different country. And even that crazy idea, toss epic parties, just because I love celebration. One of the things about A-Fest is the parties, the evening parties, are works of art. And sure enough, a few years later, we were literally tossing an epic party in the Game of Thrones castle in Dubrovnik on the Mediterranean. We were tossing a party in a private island in Mexico. World-class events. And I was the owner of this company, so I got to experience it all with my son, my daughter, and my then wife, Christina, and all of my close friends and family, and even my mom and dad. And it was beautiful. But it was such a crazy idea. Now remember, I had gone from this Groupon clone, which I thought I wanted, and then drove me into misery, and I had to quit. And a few months later, I had a festival company, which made no sense. I remember in the midst of this festival company, the co-founder of the Groupon company called me up and goes, Vishen, what the fuck are you doing? You're starting a festival? That is such a stupid idea. But it turned out to be, 14 years later, one of the greatest gifts in my life. Again, it's not a traditional business, but it gives me so many of the things I love about life.
And so you attribute that to the Lifebook.
Writing it down, getting clear, getting really, really, really clear. So I mentioned, right, this psychic Don Hong told me, you need to form your own platform. But I believe that psychic was channeling a message from the universe that I needed to hear. Mm-hmm. Sometimes intuitive friends, intuitive guides, like help guide you along. By putting your goals down, I activated that part of our soul that manifests the right opportunities. I ended up being with this psychic who gave me a clue. I ended up being on stage in Washington, D.C., then getting this intuitive impulse to just say, hey, anybody want to experience a private event with me? All of these things started happening. And it made no sense. And I didn't even know the direction that was going to lead, but it led to something so beautiful.
And so we strengthen our intuition. I want to make sure that first, like learning to listen to our intuition, you actually feel that your intuition gets stronger once you've written it down and given the universe direction.
Exactly. Your intuition, it's not that your intuition gets stronger. Your intuition gets stronger by learning to go into deep levels of meditation, primarily the theta level, and stay awake.
Okay.
Your intuition becomes more directed. Your intuition will always guide you towards what's right for you, right? But very often, because we are focused on outside goals that are coming from the culturescape, the intuition, we decide, I want to go into this industry, I want to build this company, and your intuition is screaming, no, you're gonna be miserable. Go do this thing, open this bakery.
Yeah.
Which sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so we're not listening to it because we're seduced by the culturescape. Mm-hmm. You gotta not get seduced by these outside influences and listen to that voice within.
Okay. And so meditation is the way that we start to
Yes.
really get into theta states, which is where we tap into that collective grid that we can get those ideas given to us. The universe knows what to give to us because we've written it down so it can be directed.
Exactly.
And now the second piece around creating your reality, right? How do you intentionally go about that piece?
Right. So when it comes to creating my reality, the number one thing that I do is hold the vision really clear. When I find that I'm holding the vision really clear, I can take directed action towards the vision, but at the same time, I'm listening. I'm listening to like that voice saying, hire this person, don't hire that person. Go with this partner, don't go with that partner. Build it this way. I'm still doing both. I'm taking action, but I'm plugged into my intuition. For example, I was investing over $1 million to build an app. And this is an app that we just released at Mindvalley University, the 6 app. It's a community tool that we're using to bring all our learners, all our students together. But the vision for that app came during an ayahuasca trip. I was doing an ayahuasca trip, and for 7 hours straight, had this crazy download to build this app. So I took action, invested over $1 million, hired a team in Australia, and the app is now being built. But it came intuitively in an ayahuasca trip. I remember when I came out of that journey, I left a 1-hour voice note to one of my co-founders, Jeffrey. And I'm like, Jeffrey, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. And this is what it's going to look like. And he was like, whoa, slow down. But it was that clear.
I love that. It's reminding me of a story where I was, my latest album, The Journey Back to You, which is my spoken word poetry album. I was, in an ayahuasca ceremony, and I was told this message: start playing music again every day. I play guitar, but there's like, play music every day because you're going to start making music again. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I didn't know anything about it. I was in Miami. I was just, okay, sure. And so I just started playing guitar every day, just started like following again what I was told. I was selling my car at the time, no interest because I didn't want to lose a bunch of money on it. So I listed it higher than everything else.
Right.
And yet I came back from that ayahuasca journey and someone reached out and said, I want to test drive your car. They make me an offer that's $3,000 less than what I wanted to sell it for. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to take that. And I go start talking to him. And it turns out he's a music producer. I have no idea any type of music he produces, but I say to him, you know what? I had this seed of an idea. Tell you what, if you make a track with me, I'll accept your offer. And it turns out he's won multiple Latin Grammys. He's a super professional. He just doesn't do it in English. It's like Latin artist. He's been nominated for and won Latin Grammys. Super professional. We make one track together. He buys my car. We make one track together, have such a good time that he ends up saying, let's make the whole album. Wow. And I end up making my entire last album, The Journey Back to You, for free, just with him.
That's incredible.
Because of this message of a seed of an idea that was planted to me by the universe, by plant medicine or whatever. And I think that we'll land the plane here in a way that I like to do it with 5 questions. which you've just now, just perfect segue, because you've spoken to the importance of having structure and then pouring creativity into that structure. Right. And for me, this is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have around creativity. They think that as an artist or a creative, you need complete freedom. And that's actually a huge misconception. Every painter has a particular size canvas, right? Every musician has a particular number of keys on the piano or frets on a guitar. Like, we need the structure to pour into. And so when you're talking about laying out your dreams in the life book, that's some structure that you're giving to the universe. When you talk about the ways in which you are creating your reality, I love that you're speaking to, you need to take action and structured action. And you can do a poor job of that, or you can do a good job of that. One thing that I will acknowledge is, I mean, you're a brilliant human being, hyper intellectual, very hard work ethic. Those things allow you to approach the structure part of it in a way that some people may not have, but that's where you can find support through places like Mindvalley, et cetera. And so the structure that I follow is sort of a 5-step structure. And the first step is in identifying a core conflict. And so what I mean by that is, for me, my inner artist, my inner entrepreneur have been in conflict for a lot of my life. I felt like entrepreneurship put restrictions on my artistry. And I felt like artistry, if it didn't have a point or wasn't making money or wasn't making impact, like, what's the point of doing it? And there was a conflict until I realize what I just shared with you. So I'm curious if there was a core conflict that you see at every stage of business growth, personal growth, just a core conflict, a fear of being seen or whatever, that has shaped your journey in a big way.
So one of the most interesting things is that it reminds me of this quote by Steve Jobs, right? In his famous Stanford commencement address, he said, you cannot connect the dots going forward. You can only connect the dots going back. And I used to wonder what that meant until I was reflecting in my own life, and I realized that in many situations in my life, things that I did when I was following my gut, I thought they led me down the wrong path. But years later, those things helped shape me and helped shape my creations. For example, when I was studying at the University of Michigan, I was enrolled in the School of Engineering, and I sucked as a computer programmer, barely graduated. But I decided to go and do drama and theater. And I learned performance. I learned to be an actor. I couldn't get any roles because back then, if you were my skin color, the only roles available for you in plays was, they would tell me, can you be a Mexican? And obviously I don't look or look like someone from Mexico. So I thought, man, I wasted all of my time studying all of this acting things. And then I got really deep into photography. And I was the top photography student in my class. And I graduated with an A+ in photography and an A in acting, C's in engineering. And so I thought, man, why did I dive towards photography and then not really pick up a camera? Years later, when I started Mindvalley, this is almost like a decade later, I realized how everything came together. My acting skills allowed me to become so good on stage that I was getting speaking offers all around the world. And because of my interest in photography, my passion for photography, if you look at visuals of Mindvalley, we are probably the most beautiful, aesthetic, sexy personal growth company out there by far. Look at the photography from all our events. Look at the photography of the speakers on stage. Look at the photography and the visuals on our app. It is years ahead of any competitor. And that gave us an edge. But
even your building you designed.
Yeah. Acting allowed me to be really good on stage. Photography gave me that aesthetic style that helped us dominate our industry. But but those dots wouldn't have even been apparent until 10 years later. I believe my soul guided me towards photography. I believe my soul guided me towards acting because, as Jobs said, you cannot connect the dots going forward. You can connect them backwards. And listen to your heart and intuition. They somehow already know who you are to become.
And so what's been the conflict for you in that?
So the conflict was, I thought I was wasting my time pursuing these random passions. It wasn't a waste of time.
Got it. So your conflict has been needing to know what's the point,
right?
Basically,
what's the point? Like, why do I feel like going to this country? Why do I feel like learning this language? Why do I feel? Follow that. If you feel that you need to do this, don't underestimate the power or the gift that it's going to give you. Even programming, I questioned for a while, why did I waste my life studying for 4 years studying programming? Turned out that when I was first building Mindvalley, we didn't have Shopify, all of those things didn't exist. I had just enough programming skills to build my own checkout, to build my own CRM, which meant I could leapfrog the company without investor money.
And so after identifying the core conflict, the next stage for me becomes about crafting a 100% certainty offer, which means that you have 100% certainty that the thing that you offer for the right person will work and change their life. And when you move through the world with that level of certainty of something that you have to offer, it really changes your place in the world. And I'm curious, what has been the thing that you feel you have 100% certainty? Like, what is that thing you move through the world with such confidence that you can change?
I know that Mindvalley's success is inevitable because of the lives we change, right? I mean, you go to stories.mindvalley.com. There are 22,000 case studies of human beings who submit these like stories and these pictures about how their lives have changed. It's not coming from me. I was taking directions from the universe to build a platform that was literally going to impact the lives of millions of people. So I'm so certain the success of this company is inevitable.
I love that. And you do an incredible job of it.
Yeah.
I really...
Oh, and sorry, I just realized, Adam, just open disclosure. I mentioned Silva Method, how it changed my life, Lifebook. Mindvalley acquired these companies or acquired exclusive rights. So all of these now sit in Mindvalley. Lifebook is now a Mindvalley company. Mindvalley.com Lifebook. Silva is now a Mindvalley.company, Mindvalley.com Ultramind. Just wanted to be clear about that.
Yeah. And also I love that you literally said, this changed my life. I'm going to acquire the company and then bring it to other people.
And then we reduce the cost and we make it even bigger. Like we took Lifebook from 5,000 to 500.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. I want to do Lifebook, actually.
It's amazing.
I really want to do it. So then step 3, I feel once you've identified a core conflict and you can have awareness around it and learn how to work with it and develop a certainty of how you can change someone's life, then we move into crafting signature content. So you're great at this.
Right.
Crafting signature content, which really captures the essence of you as a personal brand, but also Mindvalley. How do you approach like the way that you are on social media in this digital world?
I wish I had a more structured way for that. No, there's a lot I need to improve.
Okay, got it. And do you think, for example, do you approach? Because so many people listening to this right now are going, they have a love-hate relationship to social media.
Yeah,
I have
they should.
Yeah?
They should. Social media is, we are becoming the commodity, right? The guys making the money are basically Meta and TikTok. We become the commodity. We're working hard to enrich the coffers of the shareholders of those companies.
And so the fourth step, really, when we're crafting signature content, is creating real depth with our audience. I think that's what's made me successful. Is I've always been able to create real depth with my social media following, and I'm curious for you how you approach that. How have you found creating that you've been able to create real depth with the Mindvalley audience?
Well, I think how we do it is through diversity of viewpoints. Mindvalley isn't just like my opinions about the world. It's 100 authors that teach on our platform. And we create content with all of those authors, all of those speakers, you included, right? And so that gives people a variety of different ideas, but all within the lens of, is this making me a better human? And sometimes those ideas clash. For example, I'm a big believer in intuition. Stephen Kotler, who is a incredible author on Mindvalley, author of the book Stealing Fire, the book on altered states, believes intuition is just something going on in our brain. It's rapid processing of the brain. Both those ideas get to live together. That's okay. And we let the audience decide.
Okay. So exposing people to more ideas, even if they seem contrary to other ideas, is the way that you feel like you empower the audience.
Otherwise, we become dogmatic. We become like organized religion. We become nothing more than another force of the culturescape saying live like this. That's why from the beginning, the Mindvalley ethos is different authors with different viewpoints, and we let you, the audience, decide.
Okay. I love that. I take a very similar personal approach, which is I'm sharing what's worked for me and what I currently believe if take what you like, leave the rest, if you don't resonate with it, find someone else. Just ultimately what's actually working for you in your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Final question for me. Once you've done all of these things, you get to a point where now you have sort of this ecosystem, and you want to monetize and you want to scale. And generally I've found scaling requires leveraging either people or technology.
Right.
And you are the forefront of both of those in terms of you're at the forefront of technology. You build apps, all of these things, and you hire incredible people and work with incredible people. What is your approach to actually scaling your business? Like, what would you say? Do you have a way of being a CEO that you found is different than others?
Yes, absolutely. So firstly, people. We have 400 people in Mindvalley, employees and contractors, divided into 25 teams. And these teams report to executives, and the executive team is like insanely brilliant. Like, I'm blessed to have such a freaking brilliant executive team that knows what they're doing really, really, really well. Like, my executive team are like, they have personalities in themselves. They speak on world stages. They have their own. It's just wild. And at the same time, these people, they understand one thing. Great companies are not built by great people. Great companies are built by great processes. Great people simply build great processes. And so all of these 400 people, everything they do is process oriented, is documented, is structured. They use AI tools, they use software, they learn no code. Our company adopts AI like crazy. In fact, one of the most popular subjects on Mindvalley is AI to make yourself more effective. It's our biggest selling program last year and possibly this year as well. And so we bring in the right software, the right tools. I think this is also influenced by my engineering mindset to ensure that everything scales effortlessly.
Got it. And how do you encourage creativity throughout that?
So we encourage creativity through hiring leaders, executives who are hyper creative. For example, Manon Dave, who's our chief product officer, he just created the video and the song for the Olympic refugee team. He was just at the Olympics watching his video, his song being played on the grand screen to commemorate the Olympic refugee team. He was just in the Vatican giving a presentation on AI to the Pope. Why do I bring this guy in? Because he's hyper creative. So the people in my executive team are people who are hyper creative, hyper brilliant in their role. Our CHRO, COO, Alex Dagliotti, amazing guy. The guy just knows HR. He just knows like how to create a vision of an efficiently running organization. So I spend a crazy amount of time seeking these individuals and bringing them into the fold.
Got it. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to take us through the creative path that you've walked and how you view things, because you have such a beautiful blend of very like masculine structure, strategy, approach with the openness to listen and receive and follow that when it on paper doesn't make any sense. And as a result, you have impacted millions and millions of lives and continue to do so. And I feel very blessed to be in sort of a growing inner circle that you have and getting a chance to just get to know you personally. And
we've had some great conversations.
Yeah, just getting the opportunity to see that you are living it first. And what you've created is an expression of what you're living first and what your values are, because I think that gets lost when we get into the culture scape of, okay, what do I need to build that I can scale to make the money, as opposed to what really lights me up and how can I build a life around that. And you really embody that. And thank you for being an inspiration to me as someone who's still like, I could do this and could do that at times. I love the way that you approach it. Can you let people know where they can follow you, find out more about Mindvalley and just all of the things?
I'm on Instagram at Vishen, Vishen, and Mindvalley is just mindvalley.com.
Perfect. Is there anything else that you want to say or leave the audience with that you feel is important?
Always listen to that still voice within. That is the soul of your creativity.
Perfect. Mic drop. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for walking the creative path with Vishen Lakhiani and myself. And if you enjoyed this, if you got value from it, please share it out with someone, send it to a friend, send it to your mom, and make sure you tag myself and Vishen and Mindvalley. Let us know what was the most valuable thing that you gained from that. It is so cool to see the impact that this podcast is having out in the world. I appreciate you all so much. I know how valuable your time is. And I want to remind you that always, in all ways, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you are interested in building a life that you love through the 3 pillars of relationship, business, and creativity, then I encourage you to continue checking out more of my content, including this video, which I really think that you will like.